Hey, everybody, welcome to the True Crime Squad. I'm Christy Brower, here with my sister, co host, and partner in all things crime, Katie Weaver. Hey, Katie.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going. You know,
It's
we
the first Monday in December, so we made it, I guess.
we did. Yeah, no kidding. Well, then we have the only fair we're doing this year for this Christmas. We're doing the Yule Market on
Mm,
Sunday. Uh,
yes.
so I have visions of sugar plums dancing in my head. I don't know. I have visions of craft projects and things I should do, I
Right?
need to do, and I need to make a list, man. I'm
I
doing
have a
nothing.
desk covered with half done stuff that I really must complete.
Me too. It is bananas. So
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like I'm just kind of spinning in circles and need to I don't know, in some way get my shit together. But it's
Mhm.
it'll be what it is. So
It will. We will show up with whatever we've got, and it's going to be
Mhm.
great.
And it'll be fun. The Yule Market is super fun because
It is.
it's really our speed of people. The other craft fairs we
Mhm.
did last year they were different for us. Not really our speed typically, which is fine.
Yeah,
We
it
don't
just
have
wasn't
to
our
always
not our jam.
not really. It was kind of just like going to a church bazaar. But
Yeah, it was.
the Yule Market is more our speed. Yeah,
Yes,
and
it
it's a
is.
lot of fun. And this year it's at a bigger venue, and like it should just be amazing. So I'm
I
mostly
think it will
just
be.
excited for the fun of it. But
Me too. I love attending them just as much as being a vendor. So it's gonna be really
hmm
fun.
though I really would like to have some things prepared and ready. So we'll see if I can
Well, there is that. Yeah, that'll
organize
be good too.
myself. Yeah.
Me too. I gotcha. All
hmm
right. Well, this is a Mormon Misdeeds episode. So, we do have a dedicated podcast for these episodes, but they also show up on our main feed everywhere as well. We are committed to shedding light on crime happening within the Mormon community, within the Mormon Church.
hmm
We are ex Mormons ourselves, although we still live in Mormon land in
hmm
eastern Idaho. And, there's a lot of stuff that's been covered up and kept a big secret for way too damn long. And
hmm
we're quite done with that. And we're going to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
hmm
And with that,
Secrets. Oh,
oh,
as they say, secrets keep us sick, and we're not
yes,
keeping secrets.
no, we are not. We are definitely not. So, with that, Katie, I'm going to kick the mic right over to you because, oh, have you got the Daily Mail has been busy, shall we just say?
Right? So you and I, we almost arrived here with the same case. We're case adjacent, so that's okay. That's good.
Hmm.
But it is via the Daily Mail, and I will say the Daily Mail. I think sometimes is a little fantastical. You have to be careful with their articles. However, the exposés they've been writing recently about the Mormon Church are fantastic and well
They
documented,
are.
and I'm going to give them all the credit because they've done a great job with the work they've done here, and maybe it takes a UK publication, to go hard. But
I think it's helpful to
mhm,
be outside the US, although, we
mhm,
just saw Vice, do a bunch of exposes. We're seeing the Mormon
mhm,
church's bullshit is getting the light shown on it. But yeah, it's true that there are organizations that won't touch it with the 10-foot
mhm.
pole. And
Yep. Well,
probably
we
has
know
something to do
this
with those billions of dollars.
for sure. Well, and we know that around across the globe, religious organizations have really, really struggled with sex abuse and cover-ups of sex abuse. I mean, it's certainly not
Yeah.
just the Mormon Church, but that's who we're talking about.
Hmm.
So this is an article that dropped just earlier today, actually, about a woman named Chelsea Goodridge. And Chelsea grew up in a home where her father was a dentist as well as a Mormon bishop. They lived in Idaho. They still live in Idaho, uh, near Boise. And Chelsea had been sexually abused by her father growing up repeatedly. And in his case, he wasn't raping her. He was getting in bed with her and rubbing his erection all over her, like spooning her. And apparently had done that to her for years as a child. And one time when they were in the swimming pool, he
Oh,
was highly aroused and he apologized for his erection and told her not to tell mom. What the hell?
ooh, gross.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
She was, as you can imagine, pretty put off by him and maybe didn't realize when she was little she was being abused. But when she was an adult, when she was in her 20s and wanted to kind of, all of her peers had gotten married and started families, she had a really hard time wanting to get into a relationship and finally kind of started peeling back some of her layers and realizing she'd been sexually abused as a child for many years.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was on a trip to Washington, D.C., and he got in her hotel room, in her bed. And later, when this did finally go in front of courts, or well, actually, when her mother finally confronted him, he said that it's because he could hear some people from his room, he could hear people having sex, and that just really turned him on. So he just wanted to get into bed and snuggle his daughter and spoon with her.
What? Hello, flaming red flag.
Mm, what in the hell?
Ooh, wow.
So she's 29 now, and it's really bothering her that he is still a dentist and still has access to children because he did not get
Right?
convicted of a sex crime. So,
Wow.
yeah. So basically, what happened in 2015, oh, she was 29 in 2015, sorry. Uh, she made friends with a girl that she told about these instances with her dad, who's, as it turned out, this girl's dad works for the Mormon Church, a man named Paul Riding. And Paul was a high church official who dealt with sex abuse cases. And so this friend got Chelsea in contact with Paul Riding. And Chelsea had, her belief was that his job was to help victims, help represent victims and help them. Well, as it turned out, no. Paul was the typical, guy on board here to go to great lengths to protect offenders. Though he kind of
Mm.
played both sides of the aisle with Chelsea, and he had just been involved. There was a really highly publicized case in West Virginia, and we'll cover that case at some point. We haven't gotten there yet because, frankly, there's just a shit ton of them, isn't there?
So many.
This was
We are
in.
struggling to keep up. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I would like to cover something other than sexual abuse every once in a while. That'd be
Yeah,
great. But it's
this
like
is.
that's all there is. There's so
Yeah,
much.
for sure. This was the case out of West Virginia. Christopher Michael Jensen, who was sentenced to 35 to 75 years in prison after he was found guilty for sexually abusing children that the church had paid
Another one.
to babysit. And Riding made a sworn statement in that case that the church's helpline, we've talked about this before, there's the helpline that bishops are supposed to call. Oh, goodness sake, sorry.
You've got pandemonium at your house.
I do. There's somebody at the door, apparently. My dogs are losing their minds. And anyway, sorry, guys. But so at any rate, his job, uh, in that case, he testified and he said that the helpline, the fabled helpline of the church, that bishops are supposed to call when they're not sure what to do, when someone admits to them that they're abusing children and things of that nature. But
Mm-hmm.
they're not calling like therapists or trained people. They're actually calling lawyers who are
Yep.
advising them of their rights. And in a sworn statement, Paul Riding said that the helpline's records are destroyed every business day, that they do not hang on to the records of these calls from the bishops. They're not
Of course not. That would be
kept.
evidence.
Yeah. So
Yep.
hold on to that piece of that tidbit here and ride with me here. So,
Okay.
but anyway, that's what had kind of happened in that case. We'll do that case at some point. But at any rate, uh, he said that disciplinary proceedings are subject to the highest confidentiality possible. Yes, because again, we are keeping sex crimes and other crimes against children highly
Secret.
secret, highly confidential. Yeah. And here was the reasoning that he testified in court. If members had any concerns that their disciplinary files could be read by a secular judge or attorneys, their willingness to confess and represent or their willingness to confess and repent for their souls to be saved would be seriously compromised.
Because,
Oh,
yeah,
because it's
that's
all
the
about
problem.
them. Yeah.
We wouldn't want him to not repent, would we?
No.
My God. I mean, can these people even hear themselves when they say things like that?
So Chelsea actually traveled to his home with his daughter and they stayed there for a while and, had lots of conversations about what happened here and with her father. And as it turned out, he had actually confessed to a bishop, a man named Michael Miller, who, of course, did or didn't call the helpline. We
Kept
don't
his
know,
secret.
but kept it a secret. And then, of course, when charges finally came, the church would not allow Michael Miller to testify. And because of that, the case got thrown out.
Well, imagine.
Hmm.
Which is exactly what they wanted to happen.
However, Chelsea told her mom, Lorraine, about what happened. And Lorraine was over his bullshit. And she and Chelsea set up a bunch of recorded conversations with him in which
Oh.
he did confess to them, particularly to
Mm-hmm.
Lorraine. Kind of. He'd go as far as like, well, maybe he had done some of that, but it wasn't, but he didn't really do that. And, you know, kind of confessed, kind of didn't, was all over the map.
Mm-hmm.
But after he got charged, something pretty shocking happened.
Mm.
Another woman came forward to the police and told them that she had been having an affair with him the summer before. Remember, this man had been a Mormon bishop. I think he wasn't at the time he'd been released, but was an active Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
Had had a sexual
Supposedly living the rules.
affair with him, and he had used anesthetic, or from his dental office to drug her and knock her out and rape her.
Oh my God.
Hmm. Yeah.
Holy shit. And she'd not told anyone?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
So after he got charged with this other thing, she's like, okay, so guess what? This actually also happened to me. So while detectives are investigating these allegations, and he's still facing charges in Chelsea's case, he called that woman, that victim, 4 times and asked her to please lie to the police. Also admitted that he drugged her and said it was fun as heck, right? It was fun as heck, but it was wrong. I'm just out of principle, it was wrong, and I'm just mad as hell at myself. Yeah. So in
Wow.
the meantime, Chelsea's mother files for divorce, obviously. Probably files for divorce and has to go get a good STD test. My God.
Right?
And then, of course, the bishop can't testify. And basically, the church their lawyers manage to bully the prosecutor into dropping the charges against John for what he did to Chelsea. In the other case, they managed to get those charges dropped down to uh, just a drug charge so that he wouldn't be a convicted sex offender.
Well, we wouldn't want to disrupt his life now, would we?
Right? Gosh, we would sure hate that. Yep.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. So, in the meantime, while all this is going on, writing did a couple of things that are pretty interesting. He showed up in Boise to meet with Lorraine and Chelsea and let them know that the church was prepared to settle as long as they were willing to delete all of the recorded conversations that Chelsea had had with him for $300,000.
Oh my God.
So basically, they wanted an NDE and wanted them to, get rid of all of their evidence. And he said something really weird to them. He said that they'd have to check their records and see if Bishop Smith had ever called in to the helpline.
Records?
Say
What?
what now? The
There are
records that you don't
records?
keep, that you swore under oath don't exist.
Right?
So what is it writing? What's actually true?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We'll never know. That's what's actually true. Is
Yeah.
we'll never know.
No. We will never ever know.
This organization has no integrity.
Mm-hmm. So Chelsea has shared her story now with the AP. She has spoken with the Daily Mail and with others. The Daily Mail tried to get a statement from the church. They said the abuse of a child or any other individual is inexcusable. Now, they did actually excommunicate John Goodridge at that point. But also,
Oh, okay.
right, but
What a
also,
what a punishment for this pedophile.
well, but also prevented the bishop from testifying, which torpedoed their case, and he didn't even catch a charge for this.
Yeah.
Well, one that stuck. It's become very apparent to me that what we should all be doing is going to all of those legislators of ours that claim that they're here to save the children
Mm-hmm.
and demand that our states start passing laws that crimes against children are not protected by clergy.
Yes.
The Daily Mail actually reached out to Bishop Smith and asked him for a statement, and he said, I cannot speak to you, or I could be sued for millions of dollars. And he's not wrong. This is so fucked up. It
It
is
is
insane
incredibly fucked up.
that these men, particularly women too, I'm sure, but every story we've covered is a man. Well, except for Jody and
Jody and Ruby.
Ruby, but at any rate, I'm sure there's other women too, don't get me wrong, but it is wrong that these parishioners can ask for forgiveness from their bishops for crimes that they have and are continuing to perpetuate on children, and the bishops are completely comfortable on a moral level, on a secular level, on every level with keeping their secrets. This is insane.
What kind of morality do you have to think you're doing the right thing by not reporting? I don't care what state law says. State law is not morality. State law is the bare minimum of decency.
Mm-hmm.
But as a church, as a Christian church
Mm-hmm.
who swears that they're against abuse of all people in all ways,
Mm-hmm.
has the gall to
Mm-hmm.
use the law in order to protect themselves and the pedophiles that they frequently employ in one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's hideous.
It is the most appalling, frustrating, wrong thing. So, my challenge to all of you and to myself is that we start hitting up our legislators and telling them that we want the law to change, that we do not want churches to be protected from this kind of speech any longer, and that we want all people who commit crimes, particularly crimes against children, to be held to account regardless. There were,
Absolutely.
you guys, when the Lori Vallow case broke, it wasn't very long, and there was a letter that was circulated right around here, after Chad was arrested, reminding clergy that they were not to speak to law enforcement or the press without calling the helpline first and receiving some guidance on what they were to say.
Yep.
Don't forget, church members and church leaders, it's not your place to talk to the press. It's not your place to talk to the police. I don't care if you don't talk to the press. That's fine. It's not your place to talk to the police. Not your place.
Not your place. If you know something that should be said to the police
Yep.
to protect your own community.
Mhm. And this was sent out
The
after.
ass covering in this, how are people seeing this happen in their own communities and still giving this church money and still attending
Yeah.
and seeing them as some kind of moral authority?
After.
How?
Yep. After a woman was murdered and 2 children's bodies were dug up on a man's land, the response from the church was, "Shut up. Don't talk about
Yeah.
it. It's not your place."
Yeah. Wow.
Appalling. And then when someone did, right? When Chad Daybell's sister-in-law did send out an email from her position in the Stake Relief Society, all hell broke loose because she had no right to make those statements, to say the things she said about her
And
own family member and her own
especially
experience.
as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
she broke all the molds when
Oh,
she
yeah.
did that. And she's a badass for having done it.
Heather Daybell will go down in my book as one of the badasses for sure. But at any
Mm-hmm.
rate, we're not really talking about Daybell, but that's just one comparison of,
It's
the
a
way the
great
wagon
example
circles.
of,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of
The way
how
the wagon
these things
circle.
happen.
When that dentist in Colorado, we need to update his case. It's been a hot minute. But when he poisoned his wife and murdered her earlier this year, same
Mm-hmm.
thing. There was a letter that immediately went out in their ward reminding everyone that it would not be their place to speak to the police or the press.
Ass covering
Mm-hmm.
constantly.
Mm-hmm. So,
Well,
with that, I'm going to give you round 2 because we aren't done yet.
okay. All right. So, another Daily Mail investigation, because there are several. I'm so curious to know how many more news organizations are deep diving something related to the Mormon Church right now, because it's happening all over the place. We're seeing tons of these. So, the other release that they put out last week that I wanted to talk about is about the Dawson family. And this is two women, Becky and Katie, who were molested by a sibling when they were little girls. They're both adults now. Becky is 48 and Katie, I believe, is 39. And I follow Katie on TikTok, and I've been following her ex Mormon journey and her telling her story and her family story
Mm-hmm.
for a while now. And then she released last week that the Daily Mail had done this big article on her family and on what happened. And so I wanted to tell her story, because this is a pretty classic, this is how the Mormon Church handles this shit kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Let me tell you the story a little bit here. So the Dawson family lived in Colorado. They were described by Becky and Katie as an authoritarian Mormon family. They were very strict, taught to obey. They had very strict rules on clothing and what they were allowed to do, who they were allowed to play with.
Yep.
You know, any childhood friend that didn't dress appropriately, for example, or wasn't a member of their church, they weren't allowed to play with them.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
You know, and so of course they went to church on every Sunday. They did family home evening on every Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And they appeared from the outside as a model Mormon family. Boy, have we seen a lot of these stories. But what no one knew is that one of the brothers in this family was molesting Becky. It started when she was 4 and went on for 7 years.
Oh.
She talks about remembering the last time it happened, and he was doing some similar things to what the dentist you were talking about earlier was doing, actually, which was super gross.
Mm-hmm.
She, by the time it stopped, she was 11, and she told him, "I know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to leave my room." And once she was old enough to verbalize that and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that to him, he stopped abusing her.
Mm-hmm.
Becky didn't dare tell anyone. Their parents were very strict and authoritarian. They were very hardline in the church, and she knew what this would mean to speak about it.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, when she was 15, she went to her Mormon bishop and asked for help. Um, the Mormon Church sent her to a church approved yet unlicensed therapist. And during therapy, this is the kind of stuff, there's no vetting, there's no,
No.
they don't care. It was during therapy that she first mentioned abuse, and that really concerned the therapist. So what the therapist did, and this is going to blow your mind. You're going to think, "Oh, the therapist called her parents right away." No. The therapist three-way phone called the bishop to
You
discuss
betcha.
what to do, right? This wasn't
Mm-hmm.
a call to the police or child protection or her parents. It was a call to the bishop.
And she was a minor.
She was a minor. She was 15
Yeah.
years old. So here was the problem that the bishop saw in reporting this to the authorities. The brother, who had been molesting Becky, was out serving a Mormon mission.
Mm-hmm.
He was somewhere in the world teaching Mormonism. Who knows who else he might have been harming while he was out there,
Mm-hmm.
because no one knew anything about who he was or the things that he had done. So the bishop decided that it was going to be just too embarrassing for him to bring him home early, because that is a real disgrace. If you are a Mormon youth who has gone on a mission, it is, um, you are shamed
Mm-hmm.
horribly if you come home early.
Oh
And
yeah.
this would have been come home early, potentially be arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And so he got Becky to agree, and the therapist, not to tell anyone.
Of course.
She says, I remember the bishop saying something about arresting a returned missionary the moment he stepped off the plane, and that he didn't feel like that would be a good thing for anyone.
Oh.
Because apparently Becky doesn't count in this situation.
Nope.
So, unbeknownst to Becky, the brother had been molesting Katie up until the point that he went on his mission. Becky didn't know
Oh.
that that was happening. Um, so at age 9, so this brother went on a mission, and then a younger brother also molested Katie, who had been molested by the older brother. Like they
Sure.
were just in this terrible cycle.
Mm-hmm.
When Katie was 11, she told her parents. So that would have made Becky 20. They're 9 years apart in age.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when everything came out. This was the first time that their parents had heard of this at all.
Wow.
And Katie said that's when everything really uh, blew up.
Mm-hmm.
And her family found out that Katie had actually reported this to the counselor, and then it got reported to the bishop, and that it was never reported to them.
Mm-hmm.
So the family was pissed, because at this point, not only had the brother returned from his mission, he had also married in the Mormon temple.
Of course.
So this information was never shared, even internally,
Mm-mm.
because he should not have passed his worthiness interview to be able to go through the Mormon temple
Mm-hmm.
to get married. So then what happened is, about this time, Katie had, when she was 11, and she told all of this, things just didn't really go well. She got some help, but it was from Mormon counselors. And you have probably known this if you listen to our podcast, but Mormon girls and women who are sexually assaulted are encouraged to forgive their abusers,
Mm-hmm.
forgive those who have harmed them, take
Mm-hmm.
responsibility for your part in what has happened here.
Yes.
Those are the kinds of things they
Mm-hmm.
are told.
Mm-hmm.
So by age 13, Katie had fallen into a spiral of drug use and drinking, and she actually went into foster care for a year.
Wow.
Um, uh, Not long after that, she ran away and was homeless and addicted to drugs for several more years.
Oh.
She said she used a lot of ecstasy and heroin and crack.
Oh my
And
gosh.
when she was 17, she decided that she was going to overdose on heroin. She said, I was just so exhausted. My life was a nightmare. It felt like the easiest way out for me was to overdose. But for whatever reason, fate stepped in and she didn't. The friend that
Mhm.
she was with, that they were going to use to buy their heroin, robbed her and took all her money. So she wasn't able to
Oh.
kill herself. And she said it was the first time that she'd really, really hit rock bottom and
Mhm.
realized that, she really didn't want to die, but she came real
Mhm.
close. And so she went home for the first time in a long time and asked
Mhm.
her mom to take her to a hospital. And she went into a psych hospital for a while due
Mhm.
to the suicidality.
Sure.
She has, you know, moved on in lots of ways. She's married, she has two kids, she's doing really
Mhm.
well now.
Good for her.
Um, yeah. So for a while after the abuse was reported to her parents and the church and the family found out that the Mormon Church knew the whole time.
Mhm.
The Mormon Church came back to them and said, "All right, well, you're paying for mental health care for all these kids. We're going to get this fixed." And they did for a while
Mhm.
until they decided that the bills were just getting too high, and so they decided they were just going to stop paying.
Well, gosh, we know the church doesn't have billions of dollars in the bank or anything. I'm sure it
Right?
was
I
too
mean,
much.
I'm sure just too much. So the Dawson family actually threatened to sue, um, and the matter was settled privately for about $150,000.
There it is.
And this was back in the 90s. At no point was that abuse ever reported to the police by the Mormon bishop that knew, by the counselor who knew, no one.
Mhm.
Katie believes that her family's case was one of the major contributing factors to the beginning of the abuse hotline. That started in 1995, which was around the time that that case was settled between
Oh.
her parents and the Mormon Church.
Mhm.
But as we know, the hotline is simply legal advice at this point.
Yep.
Katie actually stayed a member of the Mormon Church until that ruling in Arizona, and we've talked a lot about it. It was Paul
Mhm.
Douglas Adams who had reported to his bishop that he was molesting his daughter. No one was told, it wasn't reported, and the abuse went on for 7 more years along with another child. This is the one that went clear to the Arizona Supreme Court,
Mhm.
in which the Mormon Church won. That they didn't have to report that abuse.
Yep.
And so because the law says they don't have to, they don't have to. You know how you know the Mormon Church is really just a corporation?
Mhm.
That's it right there.
That's how.
Churches live above the law.
Yep.
Corporations live on the razor's edge of the
Mhm.
law because, you know, a higher state of morality than just the law would
Mhm.
tell you that you should always report when a child is being harmed.
Yeah.
But no, these people are covered by the law, and that's good enough for them.
Yep. You betcha. When you have billions of dollars in the bank and the Curtin McConkie Law Office behind you, apparently you can go ahead and continue to defend the predators all you want.
Yep, yep. And as long as it's not costing the church lots of money, the Mormon church is happy to oblige. They don't care.
Mhm.
They don't care at all about children. They don't care about protecting people from abuse. They care about protecting their money.
Mhm.
That's all they care about.
Yep.
So these were two stories we wanted to share with you because, well, somehow not surprising, but still sickening.
Mhm.
And more examples of the way that the Mormon Church Corporation protects itself and its money. And when you see
Mhm.
it, when your eyes are no longer blind to it, You cannot unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone outside of, a true believing Mormon can look at this and go, this is insane. This is
Mm-hmm.
as bad or worse than what's happened in the Catholic Church and many others.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, true believing Mormons will explain this away over and over and over again, and that is why it
Mm-hmm.
continues to happen.
Oh, we talk about this stuff on various platforms, particularly TikTok, and we get
Mhm.
people that call us bitter Exmos and things like that, like because we're
And,
talking
and
about stories like
liars,
that and liars, because we're willing to talk about cases like this, that makes us the bad guy instead
yeah,
of the actual bad guys who have committed
yeah,
the crimes.
right, right. So, if nothing else, we're just trying to open the eyes of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we'll reach all those true blue Mormons. I genuinely don't, because
No.
they're indoctrinated, and we know we
Oh
have
yeah.
removed ourselves from a cult and they're still in it.
Mm-hmm.
But we will never stop talking about what the Mormon Church has done and is continuing to do to protect predators and allow the harm of children.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, this is our Monday episode. We'll be back with lots more this week. It is the first week of December. So don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, leave a review if you're listening or watching at a place that you can. All of those things help us to grow. We are
Mm-hmm.
just about to move into season 5 of the True Crime Squad, and we're going nowhere, people. So
Mm-hmm.
keep your eyes on all our streams. We'll be back with lots more content this week.
You bet.
And you know what? We are the True Crime Squad. Thanks for being here.
Take care.